How many people could get away with calling Bill Clinton Bubba to his face and make millions doing it? As you're about to see, radio host Don Imus has made a career of busting chops, anyone's chops. And now he's taking his act nationwide. Just how cocky is this guy? Well, consider this. His company is called Me and Marconi. Why? Because, according to Imus, the two most important events in radio were when Marconi invented it and when he decided to speak on it. And speak he does, as Jay Shadler had the pleasure of learning more than a year ago.
Everybody I tell we're doing this says, well, who's doing the interview? Sam or Diane? I said, well, no, it's not going to be Sam or Diane.
No.
It's going to be Jay Shadler.
Imus in the morning.
That's pretty much the way things have gone ever since I was given this thankless job of profiling the slightly twisted world of Don Imus, New York City's frothing mouth of the morning.
And he's another moron! I say every method.
During a 27-year career, Imus has personally trashed or professionally burned dozens of times, only to fly again to the top of the toughest radio market in the country. That success, in turn, has attracted a growing number of radio stations to carry Imus's ranting in a syndication deal that reportedly earns him $3 million a year.
And I'm a millionaire. Now what?
For 4.5 hours every day, this gum-chewing, mineral water-swigging, current events junkie holds court. His judgment, swift and sure, as was the case last October with New York Senator Al D'Amato, squaring off with then-challenger Attorney General Robert Abrams.
I'm going to in-house of your office. Don't make me jump over here. Wait just a second. Using your stationery? Hold it! Shut up!
At the crack of dawn, he's likely to be talking politics with a U.S. Senator.
On the phone with us now. Are you in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I am, Imus. How you doing this morning?
I'm fine. Senator Bill Bradley, good morning.
Good fun for Imus. Good PR for ordinarily stuffy politicians. But the exercise gained national attention during the presidential campaign when then-Governor Clinton took a turn.
Good morning, Governor Clinton.
Good morning, Don.
How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I'm disappointed you didn't call me Bubba. You know, that's an honorable term where I come from. It's just Southern for Minch.
Well,
At the time, Clinton had been a punching bag for the New York press. But with Imus, Clinton was a sport, showed his sense of humor, and campaign staffers credit the interview with getting the campaign back on track.
It's 10 minutes now till 9 hours in the morning.
Yesterday at the Meadowlands, Jeff Hostetler and Company couldn't
Truth be told, this guy's as intelligent as he is irascible. He just prefers being irascible. No doubt about it, along with his regulars, sports reporter Mike Breen, newsman Charles McCord, producer Bernard McGuirk, and engineer Lou Rufino, who chime in from the gallery. This guy loves playing philosopher king of the locker room. Just ask his traffic reporter.
Here's Eileen Marchese-Cohen now. Good morning, Eileen.
Good morning. Eastbound Cross Bronx, all lanes closed, so anticipate extensive delays at the George Washington Bridge and the Holland or Lincoln
in that
Tunnel.
swatter.
I am coming. I'm going to strike you.
No, but I
with
mean, it
this
looks
hard
like
object.
it
No,
looks like.
I do not have padding, and it's
How sexist in that. What a pig, huh?
inbound George Washington
I really
Bridge.
apologize. Really, I mean, I don't
I
want-
really
I don't
accept
want
it,
this-
too.
Let's strike a blow for feminism here and against the locker room. How do you react to that?
I say you're a disgusting male chauvinist pig.
You wouldn't consider yourself a chauvinist pig, would you?
No.
I don't mean to belabor this, but all the sexual innuendo jokes.
Well, that's fine. I mean, they're harmless. It's high sophomoric, juvenile, silly stuff.
Can you see that continuum that someone would say, look, you start down here with the locker room jokes and you end up with something more serious?
Well, there's a lot of elements in this show. It goes a bunch of different places. So that's part of it. I thought like a woman's breasts. I thought they were identical, but they're not. No, Larry Tisch is a murderer. Like, for example, I have 3 testicles.
Each weekday morning, as newspapers hit the stoop, donut shops open their doors, the sun comes up on 16 million New York area radio listeners, and commuters roll to work, cruising the dial. It's drive time, financially the most important part of the day for any radio station. With a daily audience of more than 1 million here, Imus's show ranks second.
Imus in the morning.
Mercedes-Benz Manhattan.
With the key listening group, mostly men 25 to 54 years old, making more than $100,000 a year.
So stop dreaming about a Benz and get yourself one of them. It's 7:24, 24 after 7. I am Imus in the morning. On the phone with us now is the governor of the state of Connecticut and my friend, Lowell Weicker.
Still, Imus is definitely an acquired taste.
I realize I'm probably out of line for asking you to come up with a babe for me. I mean, I realize that's pretty sleazy.
Bitter at first, but usually sweetening into a laugh.
Is she over
40?
40?
Is she over 40?
Right.
I don't think so.
For anyone in his crosshairs, especially public figures, the key is not to try dodging an Imus bullet, but take the hit head on. Connecticut Governor Lowell Weicker loves the game. He's been playing matchmaker for Imus for months now.
Well, she's not too young. I mean, I'm not up to holding...
No, she's not too young. No, she's okay.
I'm not up to holding somebody on my shoulders for 3 hours at a Bon Jovi concert, you know. Listen,
if Governor Weicker is an example of how to play Imus, consider how not to.
On the phone with us now, hopefully, is Donald Trump. Good morning, Donald.
Hello, Don. How you doing? Listen, with all of your friends, you're choosing me. I'm honored, but why?
I'll tell you, and you want to know why? Because there have been a number of people who have jumped off the Trump bandwagon.
Yeah. Really?
And am I one of them?
No,
the answer is no.
No,
the answer is no.
you're not.
I'm with you until everything's gone.
All right.
Till everything's gone.
Well, that's great, Don. That's great to know.
I'm with you until you go from the back of the limo to the front.
Okay.
Just a harmless dig?
Anyway.
Trump didn't think so, and let him know it that night at the U.S. Open tennis tournament.
I wasn't malicious at all. You know, it's just funny. So he's a creep. And he's a sissy boy.
So Trump's off the list now?
Off. He's history.
Imus let the Trump affair simmer through the weekend, bringing it to a full boil in the pre-dawn hours 2,000 miles away in El Paso, Texas. That's where Imus's brother Fred owns a classic car restoration shop. Fred's a regular on Imus in the morning and eagerly joined in on the Trump bashing.
So anyway, now, Fred, now that I hate Trump, everybody in New York hates Trump.
That's it.
And one person in El Paso. and by tomorrow morning, maybe hundreds. And by the end of the week, thousands.
Yeah.
And terribly unfortunate at this moment of such solemnity, the observance of the Hiroshima.
No. That's the observance of the Jewish New Year.
Oh, certainly. Forgive me. The observance of my Sharona. I knew that.
No, that's not even close.
Rush your mama?
No.
The maniacal ebb and flow of Imus's show actually depends on a tide of characters and voices. Each day after the show, Imus sits down with comics Larry Kenney and Rob Bartlett to produce comedy bits that'll pepper his show later in the week.
All right, let's do this. Come on, you guys.
Okay.
Here now some of the headline stories we're following for you.
I'm Walter Cronkite.
I'm David Brinkley.
Submitted for your approval. Donald Trump, real estate magnate, development tycoon, billionaire, human doormat. And so Donald Trump discovers that not unlike
No. He has entered the Imus zone. Then you need that cut.
When did you start insulting people on the radio?
At that point. Oh. Is that like a trick question?
No.
No, I don't.
It's just a real question.
I haven't ever insulted anybody.
No, I know, but, well, it's just a hypothetical, obviously. But just assuming that you might have insulted
You're going to
somebody.
characterize it as insulting. I'm going to frame it with saying humorous things about reveling in another's agony.
And he's been reveling since he got his first radio job in California in 1968, followed by WGAR in Cleveland. Then in 1971, he hit the big time in the Big Apple. WNBC gave Imus his own show at Rockefeller Center, and the sound of morning radio would never be the same.
Imus says the Reverend Billy Saul Harkness. Friends, you have made 66 WNBC, New York's #1 radio station.
Imus filled the air with a host of demented characters that would become his trademark. In 1972, Life magazine proclaimed Imus the country's most outrageous disc jockey. He was on top of the world, but the bottom was about to drop out.
He'd come into the station, boozed up.
Sometimes, sure. I mean, many mornings I'd be sitting there with a 16-ounce thing of vodka. I'd put a little grapefruit juice on it just to color it, just to get through the morning. It was tough.
I read somewhere 100 days, you missed 100 days of work in 1973.
I mean, I was in radio a little over 2 years, and I went from making $80 a week to making 6, 7 figures, 6 figures. I was just very arrogant. I think a lot of that came from just being very insecure.
He would have reason to be. In 1977, he was fired, exiled, as he says, back to Cleveland.
Here you were in the #1 radio market in the country. Suddenly you find yourself back in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Were you humiliated?
Yeah. I was the big guy. I was the guy. I mean, I was the guy in radio.
And he would be again. In 1979, WNBC rehired Imus to jumpstart their sagging ratings. He was back on top, only to stumble again, tripped up by a voracious cocaine habit. Though dazed and drugged, Imus tried to keep up appearances, but his mask was cracking.
What was the bottom of the barrel for you?
July 17th, 1987. It was the worst day I ever had in my life.
It was the last day of a 9-day booze binge.
And I was just in horrible shape. I mean, I was shaking and I couldn't. I weighed 152 pounds. And I looked at myself in the mirror and said, this is insanity.
1 month in a rehab center, and 6 years later, Imus is still on a treadmill, but he's traded compulsions. Frantic about his health, he now runs 6 days a week, at home in his Manhattan apartment or on the road. The mouth that roared was back.
Well, now everybody in New York hates Trump.
You got that right.
So, I mean, we're talking about basically a fat, puffy sissy boy.
Jerk.
Any hope that Don Imus might eventually run out of people and places to skewer was probably shattered forever this past spring, when he moved here to Southport, Connecticut, and bought a weekend home just up the road. Now, Southport is a town of old money, upper crust values, and exclusive clubs. In other words, the perfect target for a pit bull named Imus.
Imus rolled into town last January with his Rolls Royce and his own idea of a good neighbor policy. Imus has now made Southport fair game on his show. In fact, on anyone's show.
And I get a place right on the water, and up the road is the Pequot Yacht Club. All right. Now, this is a yacht club that wouldn't admit Phil Donahue. Yeah. And, I mean, would you? No. He's fine. But nobody wants Marlowe down there screaming at the help. Yeah. No. They don't want that. So I think I'm their kind of guy. I'm willing to wear clothes with fish on them. Yeah.
Thistle Hawkins had been peacefully living in Southport for 20 years, until Mr. Imus moved in right next door.
You know, he said some pretty rough stuff about you folks. Yeah. He's called you white trash trailer park people. Mm-hmm. He called her a witch.
Yeah, I also called her an amorphous old bag. I'm not proud of that, you know. But she said hideous, hurtful things about me.
How long do you think it'll take before Mr. Imus becomes really part of this community?
At
the rate he's going.
I'd say about 100 years.
She looks like somebody who could just brutalize you.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. She started it.
But of course, Imus will finish it.
Okay, on the phone now, one of my neighbors up in Southport, Thistle Hawkins. Good morning, Thistle.
Hey, Bannerneck.
He's already added a bogus Thistle Hawkins to his morning cast of characters. In case you haven't heard, Don Imus always gets the last word.
You know, this is it, by the way. It doesn't go any deeper. In the essence of Imus, this is it. Sure. This is not an act. You know, this is it.
This week, Imus has been broadcasting from a hospital bed. He suffered a collapsed lung, but it didn't affect his mouth. He's still as prickly as ever and is expected to be released soon.
Coming up, how much waste is hidden in the new budget deal? But first, Primetime goes back to some of the grocery stores that overcharged us at the checkout counter. We'll tell you how super the markets are when Primetime continues after this from our ABC stations.